Coming up, the country reported cases of COVID-19 climbs to 4. Also, the country's curfew underway in just a few hours. And hear how the closure of some businesses are impacting Port Lakaya vendors. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
You're watching the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Shashina Wolf-Farquharson. As always, it is so great to have you with us. Topping the news, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the Bahamas just moved up a notch. Health officials indicating that confirmed cases now stands at 4. There are 10 persons currently in quarantine. Meantime, an 8-hour nightly curfew gets underway in just a couple of hours. It is the government's latest effort in the fight against the coronavirus or COVID-19. The Royal Bahamas Police Force playing a key role in ensuring that the curfew is effective. Rumiko Knowles has the story.
The national curfew implemented by the Prime Minister of the Bahamas taking effect at 9 a.m. this morning and will remain in effect until March 31st. Police officials are pleading with residents to adhere to the emergency order as it is for our safety. Chief Superintendent of Police Loretta Mackey is the officer responsible for communication and support in Grand Bahama. She says officers will be on patrol to ensure that persons are obeying the order to help prevent the spread of the dreaded virus.
We will have our officers out in full gear who are coming in this evening to make sure that persons are adhering to the laws. And even our security company, they've been sending in the names as asked. They were sending in the names to make sure that when they are stopped, and we have our command center that's open. It's being manned by a gazetted officer along with other persons. And so when they call in, we can verify that those persons should be out there to make sure, because if they're not and they're not there, then they can be arrested. We don't want to go about arresting officers and then being persons in the community and filling them up. We just want to explain because some persons don't understand.
Now, the emergency order does permit persons and or businesses providing essential services to traverse the streets and remain open.
Of course, we were inundated with a lot of calls. We had a lot of persons bringing in correspondence, security companies. And then we had persons who were, like, for example, one of the large companies here, they're phase 5 of their construction. And then we have those persons who are the agents for Focal, bringing in fueling, and that's very important for us. It's very essential, diesel and gas and all that, to keep the community moving. And then, of course, like, for example, West Beach Utility Water Plant, that's very essential. And so those companies, everybody who've been sending in letters or calling, we've been trying to assist them to give them the right, advice on how they can go about. So far it's been pretty good, but we know that the test will be tonight at 9 p.m. until 5 a.m. in the morning.
Mackey says there is an emergency hotline and email address available to assist and educate those who did not understand the order in its entirety.
We have the command center, we have an email address, and then it's covid19gb@rbpf.bs. And then we have some hotlines. They can call 350-3082 or 3083 or 4, and then we have 351-9111.
Rumiko Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Now, with a curfew set to take place at 9 p.m. tonight and all non-essential services and business closed, our Talia Hall spoke with several residents who shared their thoughts on the lockdown.
The nation's leader, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, announced several orders that are in place until March 31st across the country. No banquets, receptions, sporting events, or large gatherings will be allowed. There will also be no public bus transportation, mailboat services except for the transport of freight, and no non-essential travel on private boats. All persons are to stay indoors between the hours of 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. daily. All businesses are closed to the general public except for some essential services and businesses that are considered to be essential.
Now, the grocery store is one of the businesses that will remain open during this period between the hours of 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. Now, when our ZNS News team visited a local grocery store in Grand Bahama, many residents could be seen shopping, and most say they agree with the curfew.
I think it's necessary under the circumstances.
I agree with it. I think he's making the right decision, and I support him 100%.
A curfew means you're limiting crowds. You're limiting a lot of people gathering other places, restaurants, bars. So what you have to do is, in this lifetime, you got to listen to somebody. And if it's any time to listen to somebody, it's now, because I don't know if we could handle the COVID virus if it really hit you.
I think he's going along with the rest of the world, you know. I don't have a problem with it.
He's doing, I guess, what is necessary. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 virus is spreading like bonfires, and so it's necessary for critical action to be taken, and I guess that's what he's trying to do.
For weddings and funerals, there is a limitation as well. Only 10 persons will be allowed to gather. This resident says he disagrees.
If it was me having a wedding, I wouldn't be too happy with that. Can you imagine a wedding with 10 people, a funeral with 10 people?
Others say they think it's inconsiderate for any citizen to not follow the curfew.
They're risking the lives of their families, their friends. The only way we can stop this is to follow the rules now in the early days.
You see what's going on around the world. I mean, why take a chance? Look at Italy. You know, they took a very long time to make these type of changes, and look what's happening now.
I just think they're not really smart people. They're not looking at the whole picture.
Worldwide, people are being infected. Persons have been infected and don't even know. And that possibly is true even here, because Bahamians travel a lot. And so you're coming into contact with persons, and if you're not respecting social distancing, you're endangering yourselves, you're endangering your older family members.
I just hope that everybody out there does do social distancing.
Now, any person, company, or organization in breach of the order will face fines not exceeding $10,000, imprisonment, or both. It's Talia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Thank you, Tally. Well, during yesterday's national press conference, health officials outlined how those who may have close contact with infected persons can be protected, and also how you should care for your children at this time. Sabrina Brown has more.
As the country is now under an emergency order, and as the Ministry of Health ramps up testing for COVID-19, many are concerned about the safety of those on the front line in the war against this deadly virus.
What is needed in some cases for people who come in contact with suspected cases or known cases is something that the doctors call personal protective equipment. In regular everyday language, that is gloves, a mask, eye shield, and gown. So there are good guidelines from expert authorities like the World Health Organization in terms of who needs this personal protective equipment. Generally, it's healthcare workers who are coming in close contact with the patient who may be offering care. For example, a nurse who is changing the patient, who may be changing diapers, who may be taking samples, swabbing in the oral cavity, or taking blood tests and samples.
Consultant physician of infectious diseases at the Princess Margaret Hospital, Dr. Nakia Forbes, outlines how parents and guardians can keep children safe during this global pandemic.
I've heard parents saying, oh, could there be a play date? Maybe we could have people come over. No, we do not recommend it. So first, let me start in the home. Have yourselves or your children's caregiver, if your caregiver comes from outside the home, you want to make sure that they first are well and they wash their hands and, change into clean clothes when they get to your house. You want to wash the children's hands frequently with soap and water. That works really well. It works better than hand sanitizer if you use it properly. Now, the children are going to touch their face. You can't stop children from touching their face and putting little snacks in their mouth. But what you want to do is you want to stop them from gathering with other children. So play dates, close family, friends, and so on. Just remember, when you share toys and playtime, you also share the risk of infection. So if you do that, keep in mind that your child's friends might have an infection. We know that 80% of these children are going to do really well or be asymptomatic, so they can spread germs and they can bring it home to grandma or someone who's vulnerable. We also recommend not letting these children go to the playground because you know what? We can't sanitize all that playground equipment and toys. So they may need to go outside, otherwise they'll be going stir crazy. They can go to the park or the beach, but we want the children to stay within their family unit and we don't want them to gather at this time.
Dr. Forbes says while some may believe the emergency order is too strict, officials must put best practice measures in place to keep the population safe. Meanwhile, Attorney General Carl Bethel is urging Bahamians to comply with the imposed curfew and a social distancing order.
Persons should be in their homes. If their home is affixed to the soil or in some manner, they may go in the immediate area around in their yard, but not if it's an open yard over to someone else's home, and not to mingle with any occupant of any other house. If it's an enclosed yard, well, of course, it's an enclosed yard.
Now, this emergency order will remain in effect until March 31st, and that is when a decision will be made based on consultation with medical officials.
What we would need to see is the transmission that we are trying to prevent has not occurred. We will be monitoring as we continue to do our testing and contact tracing, the number of cases we're getting. Certainly, if it is that we can see that we are not having ongoing transmission of the virus, then we would be in a position to make the recommendation toward lifting the curfew.
Now, members of the public are urged to adhere to the guidelines outlined in this emergency order or face the full brunt of the law. Sabrina Brown, ZNS Network News.
Avoid large gatherings. That's a precautionary measure in the fight against the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. This advisory impacting upcoming events like parties, weddings, and even funerals. Megan Shepard spoke with an event planner today who says she believes that this move is done in the best interest of safety for Bahamians.
The Prime Minister announcing the implementation of a number of emergency measures as health and government officials work to curb the spread of the COVID-19 virus. One of those measures includes limiting social gatherings, such as weddings, birthday parties, or funerals, to only 10 people. Now, we spoke to proprietor of Minding Your Business Event Planning, Davina Rutherford, who says she is encouraging Bahamians to be creative when moving forward with events with a 10-person maximum.
Don't be afraid, go ahead and do it. The day can be beautiful if it's 1,000 people, if it's 10 people. Again, it's all about the details and the experience for you and the guests. It's about you and your partner if you're getting married. It's about you if it's your birthday. So you find some people's feelings may be hurt, but you find those 10 people closest to you and you make that day memorable. And forget the rules. There are no rules. The day could be whatever you want it to be as long as you're happy. Pay attention to all of the details and make it memorable.
She notes that Grand Bahamians were in this predicament no less than a year ago due to Hurricane Dorian. She says that persons should consider using this time to fine-tune details or even save more funds for the event.
I would tell them to stay calm. Use this time for those brides if you want to lose 10 more pounds, to pay attention to a little bit more detail. That photo booth that you might have wanted, use this time to get the extra dollars to get that photo booth, add in all those elements that would have been missing, and contact the planner. Let them help you through this process because it could be stressful during this time. I would communicate with my vendors to let them know if I'm going to change the date, if I'm going to downsize, if I'm going to cancel, but I would not suggest canceling. Postpone it, make the day more memorable. As long as your partner and you are happy, that's all that matters.
Now, Rutherford notes that if persons do intend to cancel their plans, it will affect a number of businesses that were once involved in making the event a success.
From photographers, DJs, cake, pastry, planners, decorators, yes, it's had an effect on us.
Megan Shepard, ZNS Network News.
Well, the global pandemic is also affecting the operations of the judicial system. Jamila Mizik picks up the story.
Chief Justice Brian Morey, QC, announcing that all new trials in the Supreme Court and Magistrates Court will be delayed. New trials in the Supreme Court are on hold until April 14th, and those in the Magistrates Court are suspended until March 30th. However, part-heard criminal and civil trials in the Supreme Court and lower courts will be concluded. Meantime, all travel for magistrates to hear matters on family islands where there are no resident magistrates have also been suspended until April 14th. Social distancing protocols of at least 3 feet will be followed when court hearings are necessary. Supreme Court arraignments, bail application, and case management conferences will take place by video link from the remand court at the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services while their lawyers are in court. Emergency bail applications will also be heard with the lawyer alone in court or by video conferencing. In the magistrate's court, no more than 15 persons will be allowed inside the courtroom. Traffic court arraignments will continue, and a maximum of 20 people will be allowed inside court at one time. The Chief Justice also stating that all high-traffic public areas of court buildings will be sanitized on multiple cleaning cycles throughout the day with sanitizing liquids. We spoke to attorneys Constance McDonald and K. Brian Hanna, who both say they appreciate the precautionary measures.
He just had to implement whatever measures he thought was necessary in the general interest of the public. The courts weren't closed down, but they're practicing like social distancing and certain other practices that will make it almost impossible for the virus to spread within the judicial system. And I think that's the responsible thing to do, because everybody has to be careful in our social interaction to make sure that we don't negligently or without being aware spread the virus.
I think it is the best choice right now to actually suspend any hearing whereby you have two, even like 4 or 5 persons in that one room. We know and we have to respect the fact that persons are coming from all walks of life. There's really no sort of detection in terms of where the person would have been the last week or the last few days. So some persons are actually coming in from abroad to come to court. So without those precautionary measures, I think we'll actually be putting ourselves at risk. So I do appreciate and I'm very happy that they are actually moving to make these decisions very quickly. I just hope that the suspension can maybe go a bit longer until we get some clearer view in terms of how this virus is actually spreading and how far it goes.
Jamila Mizik, ZNS Network News.
Coming up, restaurants in Port Lacaya already making changes as they monitor the threat of COVID-19. That story and more when we return.